If you're writing blog content but no one's reading it, it's not because your content sucks, it's because most of the content marketing advice out there is bad. It's designed for big companies with huge teams who can just throw shit at the wall until something works. Publish every day, target every keyword, just write more, more, more. Not only is that just bad advice, but if you're a small business or a solopreneur, you don't have unlimited time and resources because let's be honest, you're usually writing content in the evenings or weekends. So you need tactics that are going to work even if it's just one person doing this part-time. Which is why in this video, I'm going to share my own personal content marketing tips that I've learned over the last 12 plus years of doing this professionally. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Daniel Daines-Hutt and I'm a marketing nerd. I run a blog called AmpMyContent where I share guides on marketing techniques that I've tried and tested. And I'm also the head of content for a tech training platform that I've helped grow to over 1 million customers. With that out of the way, let's get into these tips. So tip 1. Don't worry about the death of content. So let's clear this up right away. Every single year that I've been writing content online, without fail, there have been people saying that content marketing is dying. Every single year, it's been one thing or another, and it's still here. The people who claim it are usually those who are trying to position themselves and their competing service. You know, it was social media, then it was Facebook groups, now it's meta ads, AI search, etc. Trust me on this, content isn't dying. However, it is worth addressing the elephant in the room because right now, a lot of people are freaking out about AI search and traffic going down. And yes, there have been dips, and I'll cover how to deal with them in a second. But first, I want you to stop, breathe, and realize everything is going to be okay. Because yes, it's still worth writing content in 2026. Here's why. First off, all those large AI search tools, or even just AI tools and companies, they're all currently hiring content marketers and paying them ridiculous amounts of money, $225,000 US a year for this role. Why would they be focused on growing their own organic traffic with blog content if they thought this channel was ending? Secondly, the traffic being lost to AI search is not actually a bad thing. It's kind of a good thing. You see, most of the keywords and articles that are seeing traffic drops are on topics that wouldn't really convert anyway. For example, in the past, a lot of big companies would focus on the highest volume keywords around super basic topics and searches, all stuff at the top of the funnel and the start of the customer journey. Stuff like, what is content marketing? 480,000 people search for that, so I understand the appeal of wanting to target it. But the thing is, with these new tools, when questions are so basic like that, the user can find out the information in just a sentence or two right there on the screen in the search window. So we're not going to click through to those websites because they've already got what they needed. And because these are high volume terms in the past that used to send these people a lot of traffic, that's why they're freaking out because they lost all of those clicks. But let's be honest, the people who search for those things are so far removed and not ready to become a customer yet. Anyway, no one is ready to buy a content marketing service who doesn't even know what content marketing means yet. So it's no big loss financially. And like I said though, even though the traffic is down for those terms, it's actually a good thing. Why? Well, because of how intuitive these tools are to use, people's search methods are evolving and changing. Rather than ask a question and click through, nowadays, if they ask something basic, they get the answer in the AI results, and then they ask follow-up questions. This is important because these follow-ups then lead them to answers where they want to click through to content. For example, let's say that you ask, what is content marketing? You see the answer, and then you see all the advice on managing writing teams or advice saying you should write hundreds of posts, both things that you don't want to do for your situation. Now, in the past, they might have ended there and just left your website. But with AI search, they can refine their questions. So let's say you're a solopreneur, you ask, what is content marketing? It tells you this, and you go, okay, well, how do I do content marketing as a small business? And so it starts recommending guides specific to you, and then they find resources and click through. This is a huge game changer because although we're losing that front end top of funnel type traffic, the people are moving closer to becoming a customer much faster than they would in the past. A lot of those aha moments and trying to figure out what they need gets accelerated, and so they come into your world quicker, especially if your content aligns with the questions that they've been narrowing down. However, there's one more reason not to worry about the naysayers around content, and that's the fact that even if Google died tomorrow, I would still write blog content. Why? Because content marketing is much more than just a traffic generation channel. The traffic is actually just a bonus, thanks to how search engines currently work. The real value of content is being able to communicate with your audience at scale without you being there. You write something once and then every new visitor can read it and move towards becoming a lead and a customer. If we look back at that job posting for Anthropic, the Claude guys, they say the exact same thing in their job post. They're looking for someone who understands that great content has the potential to both educate and drive adoption across the entire pipeline, which is corporate speak for content turns readers into customers. They don't even mention traffic goals as a requirement in that job posting because they know that's not the main benefit. Once you realize this too, it totally changes how you think about content because new traffic channels are going to pop up over time and you can simply send people to your content from whatever the new shiny thing is, TikTok, whatever. The trick though is to write good content around topics that your audience cares about. So with that in mind, how do we know what to write about? Which brings me to tip 2. Write for your audience and customers first and for algorithms second. So I once had someone reach out to me for advice because their blog was getting, no joke, around 10 million visits a month, but they were struggling to make $10,000 a month in sales. The problem was they were focused on the wrong types of content. All they cared about was traffic. So what's the solution? Well, the trick is to turn the common advice upside down and use my build it backwards strategy. So here's how the build it backwards strategy works. In marketing, we have 3 levels of customer awareness. We call it tofu, mofu, and bofu. These names represent the 3 layers in a marketing funnel. The top of the funnel, the middle of the funnel, and the bottom of the funnel. So the top of the funnel, tofu, it represents everyone in your audience who might become a customer. They're just now aware of a problem, but they might even not understand what the problem is, let alone the cause. Like they're not getting enough sales to their website or something. These are the people who are searching for what is content marketing, etc. Most companies focus on content topics at this end because they've got the largest volume of audience. However, this is a bad starting position because these terms are incredibly competitive to rank for. And we've already seen that basic stuff like this is now getting answered by AI search tools. And also the people who do find you through this are so far away from becoming a customer, it's kind of pointless until you have everything else in place. That's why I recommend everyone starts by creating content at the bottom of the funnel first and build backwards. The content at the bottom of the funnel is for people who are just a step or 2 away from becoming a customer. It's far less competitive to rank for, and it's content that helps you make sales. So yeah, we build it backwards to everyone else, totally against the common advice. We start at bofu, then we move up to the middle to mofu and then tofu content after. That also means that as more traffic starts to come in once we start moving up, our site's far more effective at turning people into customers. It's pretty smart, right? So with all that in mind, how do we come up with the content that we should create first? Well, it's actually really simple. All you really need to do is go ahead and open up a Google Doc. And then I want you to answer the following questions and write this down. I want you to make a list of what it is that you actually do for customers. Make a note of all the steps and features and why you do them. Be sure to also include the problems it solves and the benefits. These are usually all the conversations you have before someone becomes a customer, or the sticking points or problems they often have. Just like that, you've now got a list of topics that you can write and then send that content to people instead of you having to repeat yourself anymore. Easy, right? Well, if we want to make more sales from content, we can also take this a step further with 2 other types of posts. The first one, we want to make the other people the hero. So with case studies. Case studies can help make more sales because they're proof that what you're talking about works. However, most people write them wrong. I would say 99% of people write them wrong. How? They're usually super short, like 300 words. They say what you did and talk all about yourself. But people don't care about you. They care about themselves and their own needs. That's why when you write case studies, you should make one of your customers the hero of the story. Make it all about them, who they are, what life was like before, what life is like now, the exact steps you took to help them, and any problems along the way, what they've tried before and what didn't work. This not only shows your expertise, but it helps people resonate because they see themselves in the customer. They see that person and they think those people are really similar to me, and if it works for them, it should work for me too, right? When I did this, when I started writing case studies like this, I got $3 million in client requests in 2 weeks. The article went viral. It was insane. Do this and you'll make far more sales from people who are not sure if your thing will work for them. However, there's another article you can write to make easy sales, and that's comparison guides. So there's a lot of people out there who like to make sure that they're making the very best choice. They like to kind of analyze everything and all the options. So before they decide to buy, they'll often search for guides, comparison guides of your offer versus a competitor's offer, or all the different options out there. Hardly anyone ever writes these guides apart from affiliate marketers, because they make sales and that's what they want to do. It's crazy that businesses don't do this because they do two awesome things. One, you can help people decide to choose you if they were not sure, if they were on the fence. Even better though, they can be read by people who are looking at competitors who didn't even know about you, but suddenly your offer is now one of the options that they might choose. You can literally steal competitors' sales out from under them like this. And even better, these types of guides are almost never competitive to rank for. So if one competitor gets a heap of traffic like the market leader, you might find thousands of people searching for alternatives to them at the last minute. Seriously, if you've got a tool like Ahrefs, put in your competitor plus alternatives and see how many people are searching for it. You can write it, rank for it overnight, and get easy sales. However, you got to be specific when you write these. You got to make sure that you're being honest. Say who you are right for and who you're not right for, and recommend the competitor if they do something better that's not your focus or it's a feature of theirs. You can be smart about it, you can say that they have that feature, but we don't focus on it because of XYZ. This does a lot of things. For the people who don't want those features that you're missing, they're going to see you as honest and want to buy from you. It's such an easy win. And for the people that do want those things, they'll recommend you to friends who don't need those features. So if you write all of these bottom of the funnel content, you'll now make far more sales. The next step after that is to start writing middle of the funnel content that gets more searches so you can scale up your traffic. There's usually a little bit of overlap between this content and some of the stuff you've already planned out. Like how-to guides and things, but you can also write additional guides that are a step or so removed. So for example, let's say that you're an SEO agency and you offer search engine optimization services. Your bottom of funnel content that you planned earlier, one of those might be around a specific link building technique and why it works best. That article would then lead them to your services where you can do it for cheaper and faster and better than they could do themselves. However, people in the middle of the funnel, a larger segment of the audience, might be trying to figure out how to get traffic to their website. They don't even know what the options are yet, and they might even not know what kind of SEO is fully. So you need to write that how to get traffic guide, and in that, share how SEO works as one of the options, so then it leads them further down to becoming a customer. Make sense? Now, you could just write basic how-to guides and all this, and that's fine. But I also want to give you a couple of sneaky tricks that have worked really well for me that you can use to stand out further and make people want to buy from you. So let's break a couple of these down. The first one is planting your flag in the sand. So a really great way to get people to trust you is to help them become aware of a problem they might even know about yet, especially if you can do this by providing a solution that's contrarian to common knowledge, not rage bait or anything like that. So for example, one of my very first articles was this one here. My argument was that if you're a solopreneur or small business, more content is not the answer. You should have good content that you promote to get in front of people. This went crazy. Fun fact, my very first blog subscriber was James Clear, the Atomic Habits guy, because he opted in to that article. So why does this work, planting your flag? Well, first off, it makes you stand out because you're different to the rest. It helps you stand out even more if you help them understand an issue they didn't realize was the root of the problem. It's like you have this forbidden knowledge and experience. In my example there, I was saying that more content doesn't help if you have zero kind of backlinks. Instead, if you've got content that sells, you should distribute it and get it in front of people again and again and again, because it's just going to make you sales. So that's technique number one. You can make yourself seem even smarter with this next type of post. I call it the Big Mac method. So if you think about it, the Big Mac isn't that different from any other burger out there. It's just bread, beef, lettuce, cheese, and Big Mac sauce. A lot of restaurants offer something similar, but the Big Mac stands out. So why is this? It's simply because they've given it a unique name, so it sticks in people's brains. That's exactly what I did with my build it backwards content strategy earlier. This helps a number of different ways. First off, it helps the reader understand the concept better, but it also helps you stand out and show that you have a level of expertise, because beyond just knowing a thing, you also named the thing, you came up with this solution. It's such a simple concept, but it elevates you above the average person who's got similar skills, services, and offers. And you can do the same thing with your methods and stand out with your audience. You can even be sneaky and take it a step further by giving Big Macs to your peers and then leverage their audience so you're seen as an even bigger expert in your space. It's really easy to do. Basically, you pick a company or celebrity that your ideal customer knows, and then you share your advice of what they could do as if they were a client. So, for example, one of my other Big Macs is something I call a hyper-specific offer. Basically, it's a technique to capture emails from blog content. It's super simple in concept. We just create lead magnets that are unique to an article and designed to be the next step the reader wants to take once they finish reading. If you want to see one in action, you can check it out in the link in the description below. So why care about this method? Well, the average email opt-in rate is just 2%. So only 2 out of 100 readers become an email subscriber. But my technique with that method averages around 15%, and I've had some articles convert as high as 83%. That means 83 out of 100 readers subscribed. I'll cover this more later, but let me show you how this works with this Big Mac giving method. So let's say I pick a celebrity. In this case, I could pick Backlinko. Backlinko is a marketing blog that talks about SEO, and a lot of their audience would probably be my ideal customer because people who do SEO do content marketing. I could write an article about how Backlinko could use hyper-specific offers to get more leads. Then Backlinko's audience would see this and see me as a peer on a similar level because I'm giving them advice. It's super simple. I don't even have to do the stuff. All I have to do is say how the method would impact them if they tried it out. So in this case, I could put their website into a tool like Ahrefs, then I'd find 3 blog posts that tie into the offers and calculate how much traffic they get. I always recommend you just try this, with like 3 articles just to see how it works. So let's say I pick these 3 articles on the screen right now. We've got, 4,783 plus 3,400 plus 1,783. That's almost a total of 10,000 visits a month. So if I did the math of this traffic with my opt-in rate of 15%, then that's 1,500 subscribers a month, or 18,000 a year that they're missing out on. And that's just if they implemented it on these 3 articles. So I write a post or I do a video like this. I share how the method works. I give some examples. I give them the articles, I say what the hyper-specific offers they can make and the math, and boom, now the audience sees how this could impact even the biggest sites in the space, and they want to try it on themselves. It's a really easy way to build expertise almost overnight. Now, like I said, you can still do other how-to guides and things like that. You don't want to just do this and nothing else, but those particular little tricks can help us stand out as leaders in our space. So what's next? Only at this point would I ever start targeting the tofu type content, and if I'm totally honest, I'd probably skip it because I'd be better off doing a few other things in this guide first, or just rinse and repeat and create more bofu and mofu content topics for different offers that I have. That all being said, your content still needs to be good for this to work, so let's cover that next. So tip number 3, good quality content comes from systems. So the difference between good content and bad all comes down to having a writing system, because when you've got a writing system, you can avoid the common mistakes that make writing hard. Most people who don't write professionally don't have a system because you've never had to make one. And don't worry, you don't have to either, because I'm going to give you my system now. So open up a Google Doc and then just write the following on it. We're going to make a little template. So we're going to have the headline at the top and in brackets what they want, and then intro, which will say BAB next to it, body section, and conclusion with call to action. Space all of these out. These are the main parts of the article. Now we're going to fill out some of these sections before we ever start writing, because in that way we're not trying to write from a blank page. So for example, let's say that I want to write an article on how to do guest posting. I'll walk through the steps here alongside you as I fill this out and show you how this works. So for the headline, you don't need to do anything perfect just yet. Just write what the topic is for now. This is so you can see it on the page and keep yourself on track. Next, we want to do a rough outline of the intro because we're not trying to do that perfect either. Writing introductions is hard, and if you try and write them great from scratch, you'll spend hours, especially if you haven't written any of the rest of the post yet. So instead, go ahead and write the following and then answer these questions. So you're going to put before, who is the audience for this article and what is the problem? Where are they before? Where are they now? After, where do they want to be after this problem is solved? What's their life look like? And bridge, how will you help them get there? Just fill out the parts in the brackets with your own answers. This will help you write a better intro later on after you finish the body section. But even better, by being clear on this and keeping it on the page, it'll help you stay on target of what you want to do in your post so that you don't go off on tangents. So next, we want to fill out the body section. This makes up 90% of the article. So writing this first makes everything else so much easier. Go ahead and write down any ideas of what you want to cover in your article here. Just make notes, bullet points. Then go to Google and search for other content on the topic and see if there's anything these other posts cover that you miss and you think you should add. Once you've added all these notes to the body section, just rearrange them into a logical order that would make sense. If you were trying to explain this to someone, I need to talk to them about this first, and then this, and then this. Then it's just as simple as filling out that part and fleshing it out. Do it as if you're talking to a friend. This way your writing will sound normal and you'll cover the things that they need. As you go through and you're writing it, add links to any references that'll help them understand. Maybe your offers, other content, third-party websites, resources. Add images to also help them understand easier so it breaks up the walls of text. Then finally tighten up the intro using the BAB notes you had before. By leaving the intro to the end like this, like I said, it's much easier to write as you can tailor it to what's actually in the article right now, rather than trying to come up with it in advance and being stuck and then just sitting there for 20 minutes. Smart, right? And that's it. That's all the process needs to be. However, even when the content is good, we still need to do one more thing. So tip number 4 is change the relationship and capture the lead, please. Not everyone will buy from you right away because they need multiple touch points so they can trust you and understand their problems and their issues. Your problem, of course, is that most people visit a website and never come back. So we need to collect their email. That way we can send them other content and get the sale later on. My number one system for this is my hyper-specific alpha method that I mentioned before. It takes a little more time and effort because you're making bonuses for almost all of your articles, but it does mean that you'll collect far more leads. Not only that, but this has a far bigger impact than even doubling or tripling your traffic. So let me break this down with some quick math. So assuming you actually capture the emails of people who come to your website, which most people don't, and your average opt-in rate is just 2%, so 2 out of every 100 visitors become an email subscriber that you can sell to later. Now, if you use my hyper-specific offer method, you might convert at 15%. So for 100 visitors, 15 will become a subscriber. Now, I know that doesn't sound like much of a big deal. All we did was move from 2 to 15, but to get the same number of leads by increasing traffic, you will need to increase your traffic by 700%, which, what do you think is easier and will impact sales more? Putting in a little bit more effort for each article to convert leads or to increase your traffic by 700%? It's the leads method, obviously. Absolutely every blog, everywhere should be doing this, but especially solopreneurs and small businesses that don't get a lot of traffic, because this way you can still convert and make sales. I've got 20% opt-in rates on brand new articles that have only got like 30 readers so far. So you're turning leads even with low traffic. Better still, as you scale up traffic later, it pretty much stays the same conversion rate. So you're not going to waste all those visitors. So for example, let's say that our article gets 1,000 visitors a month instead. The impact is so much more impressive. If we stayed at 2%, with 1,000 visitors, we'd only get 20 leads. But at 15%, we now get 150 leads. Definitely give this a try. It can be the biggest ROI you can do this year. You can even go into your old content and add these, content that's getting traffic every month. If you want to learn more how to do it, there's a link in the description below. Speaking of traffic though, let's quickly cover how to get it for free. So tip number 5, SEO is easy when you do this. So SEO, as complex as it can be, is actually fairly simple when you concentrate on just a few things. The main one is you need to tick a few boxes and do a few things to each article so that Google understands what your page is about. This way it knows when to recommend it. We call this on-page optimization. Then you need to get websites to link to your site, because Google and even AI search pretty much always recommends the page with the most links as the best option, meaning it gets the most free traffic. Simple, just those 2 things. But how do we get backlinks? I'll be honest, there's so many methods, but these are the best ones that I've found when you're a solopreneur or a small business and you don't have a lot of time. Number 1 is journalist links. So there's websites out there that you can check every day where journalists for like national newspapers and things or blogs are looking for sources for articles they're writing. You find one that's relevant that you can answer, you write a good reply, and you get referenced in that article. Guest posts. You write an article for another person's website and add a link to yourself in the article. And podcast guest links. You pitch podcasts on you being a guest, and they link to you from their website in the show notes. The good thing about those last two methods also is it gets you in front of new audiences. So distribution of content and getting in front of other people's audiences is never a bad thing. But anyway, back to SEO. Podcast links are probably my favorite simply because it only takes around 30 minutes to be a guest on a podcast and you just chat with someone. Super easy to do, and the links from those can be insanely strong. I've got another link in the description for something about this. I once did a huge push when I launched my blog. I got on 90 podcasts in 3 months, and those backlinks from those podcasts helped me outrank sites that were 5 years old. Like I said, my website at the time didn't have a single backlink. It was probably like 2 months old. So yeah, they work pretty well. They drive thousands of visits as well, and people trust and like you even faster because they've heard you talk, they trust the show, and now they trust you. So there's one other link building technique you can also do that works well, but it is time consuming. However, if it pays off, you can get hundreds of links with one article. I call it a data back guide. Basically, it's a unique post where you've collected data insights on a topic that you know that journalists in your space like to talk about and will reference and link to. So for example, I recently wrote one of these for my client where I'm the head of content. I researched 344 US cities to find the best locations to get started in an entry-level tech career. The client does tech training. Now, all the stuff I found was freely available information, but no one had done the legwork before to bring all this together and figure out the data. Because of that, I also found out some really interesting findings because most people would say Austin, New York, San Francisco, best places to get hired. Turns out Alabama is better than all of them. There's more money left over after costs, lower competition by almost 100x, etc. Anyway, reporters read these guides and then they start featuring it as a resource in stories. These are all links you would never be able to get otherwise, from like New York Times and places like that. My audience might not care about the topic so much, but all of those backlinks really raise the overall SEO strength of your website, which then makes all of your other articles rank slightly higher, even if it's not linking to them. Definitely more effort, and the technique can take a while to pay off. So I wouldn't do it before the other methods, but it does work. It also gets more people's audiences to come across to you, which is always a good thing. So speaking of which, tip number 6 is to repurpose your content. I'm not a huge fan of republishing your content on other platforms simply because it can be time consuming and you'd be better off building your own platform. Your blog, your email list is your own audience. If you build on Medium or Substack and stuff like that, you're just making them bigger. That said, there is one platform I recommend every content marketer use, and you can probably guess, it's YouTube. Why? Well, 2 reasons. First off, YouTube is the second largest search engine after Google. So if you rank for a topic on there, you can get free traffic. Also, YouTube recommends content to people even if it doesn't rank. So if the videos are good quality and people are watching it and enjoying it, it'll keep getting shown to more and more people for free. So you get a chance of literally impacting tens of thousands of people that you might never even got in front of. Heck, these people, that search term might not even get the same volume of traffic. So it's such a good channel to use. If you write good content, then you pretty much got a video script also. You just add some images like I've done here and some basic edits and you're done. And if you're smart, you can lead people back to your hyper-specific offers so that your videos also generating leads. Like all things though, everything we do, we have to make sure that it's working for you. So tip number 7, what gets measured gets managed. If you want to achieve something, you need to figure out the important metrics and then measure them and improve. For example, if you want to lose weight, it sucks, but you got to weigh yourself each week and track what food you eat. Sometimes you might not even be eating enough calories. I know I was eating like 1,000 less and I was putting on weight. It wasn't until I was tracking the right amount that I started to lose weight. When it comes to content marketing, you've got to do the same. You've got to track and measure. For me, I find the most important things to track are, am I publishing articles consistently? Am I making a video version of that article? Are people opting into my hyper-specific offers? Are people purchasing my training programs? If I track those 4 things, I know for a fact I'll hit all my goals because that means I'm doing the right stuff. I'm focusing on output, but I'm also measuring and improving the main areas. If opt-in rates are down, it might be that something's broken, so I can fix it, or it might be that I can improve it or tweak it. If sales are down, again, I can see if something's broken, or I can figure out why. I can tweak and improve offers. If traffic is down, I can update content. I can improve it. It might be my page speed is broken. As long as I'm tracking these things, I know the audience will grow. But if you don't know it's working, you won't do the work. You need that tracking, measuring feedback loop if you want to succeed in anything, especially content marketing, because it's a long-term play. For the longer you do it, the more it pays off. So hopefully these content marketing tips have helped clear up a few common problems you've been having, and you can now get past them. I've linked to a bunch of different resources and guides throughout this post, so be sure to check them out below. Content marketing is the highest ROI channel that you can focus on for your business.